what we're here today is to talk about dialogue and talk about how different ecosystems can work together, compete sometimes against each other, and learn from each other to develop a global fashion world. I think I speak on behalf of everybody when I say that we're delighted to have you, to have Monsieur Morand, to have Cécile here with us today to talk about fashion weeks and about the future of fashion with three people that are leading today at a world level this dialogue. Yeah? Okay. So I would like to start with a question to each of one of you, and then I would really like this to be a conversation between yourselves. Can I start with you, Pascal?
Yeah.
Paris codified fashion into a system, you know, with the haute couture, with the prêt-à-porter. What is essential that we preserve today of fashion weeks?
Well, I think first what we just experienced is it shows how much fashion is in the right center of debates of the society. So it's let's say it's an amplified vision without judging of the debates. So fashion is right in the middle of everything. So globally, my perception is that we are living a deep period anyhow of transformations because the digital, not AI, more globally, is accelerating. And there are all the challenges in sustainability, the regulation. It was not a regulated system. It raises numerous questions. And the business models are also totally changing with a crisis all over the world. So I think it's a deep change, and we have anchors like the Fashion Weeks, and we also fight positively daily, all of us, for let's say for this identity and creative freedom. Maybe just one thing to recall some elements of what we do represent. If we look at the European, we could talk leather bags, we could talk glasses, we could take shoes, but to simplify, we take the European market for clothing industry. It's around, let's say, around 250 billion euros. If we take the American market, it's maybe 350, 400, same thing for China, and altogether we have a level of 1 billion. It depends on the evaluation, but 1.5 trillion. So, and in that, what do we represent in all that? If we take the European industry represents, let us say, 5%. I mean, creative fashion, 5% of the total, maybe more in Milan, maybe more like in Paris, in some cities, maybe 10% in Paris because of the tourism. So, and the volumes themselves are more than 1,000 less than the other segments. The huge problem, I mean, the people who just came should take care of that too. We have like 130 billion pieces every year. So the huge volumes matter, and volume matters. And for us, we are not like small villages to protect, but we do our best with our deep conviction to pave the way and to show that creativity matters, that creative people must be encouraged and supported, that creative people work with musicians, with artists, and that this high degree of all the talents and this high degree of complexity in managing all that thing. And we want to be exemplary because it can be inspired. And it's also important to recall that our brands represent by far the majority of the European manufacturing not in fashion, but clothing, bags, glasses and shoes, 50% in Italy, which is the most important country by far in that case, but let's say France, Germany, Spain, Portugal. So this is like a duty to do that, a duty to preserve creativity, because what happens, everything with Europe, I mean, it can be just absolutely absolutely trapped. And so this is why we need to be strong in everything that we do. This is why we organize this Fashion Week. This is why we call each other all the time. As we talk with the members, we try to encourage and to do so that Europe is also the place that everybody in the world want to come. So that's very much like it's very much a societal and economic and a prospective challenge that we do experience every day in everything, in any action, very technical actions, glamorous actions, but it doesn't change. This is always the same drive.
And you said volume matters. So, Carlo, you have a system that is built on craftsmanship, but also high industrialization. Can you really scale craftsmanship?
Well, you know, the secret of the Italian industry, but I think is also the secret of European industry, is this merger between big industry and craftsmanship. I mean, when you look, for example, at the Italian system production, we have 60,000 companies and 600,000 people that work in those companies. So medium is 10 people for each company. It's very low, if you think, because obviously there are some companies that have 1,000 people. This means that 92% of our industry is based on artisans. And this is the secret. Why? Because an artisan is flexible and creative at the same time. And this gives this organization gives a special flavor to the creativity. I give you one classical example. I go to one fabric maker in one area of one district. In Italy, there are the districts. One district they make only silk, one district fine wool, in another district men's shoes, women's shoes, and so and so. And in this district, there are small artisan, medium industry, and big industry that they cooperate together because they work on the same matter. For example, to make a shoe, there is somebody who makes the heel, somebody who cut the leather, somebody who makes the hints, and then somebody put it all together, and they all cooperate. When you go, for example, to one of those artisans, you take this wool, they say, I want this wool like a paper hand, and this is a special color, and I want 25 meters after tomorrow because I have to do a fashion show. Probably would make in the night by hand, and he would prepare for this show. And another designer would ask the same wool in a peach hand, that is the opposite, and the special color he would make also. Then after, when you show and you sell it, you sell very little, he will produce. Or you sell a lot, he will go to a factory very close to him, and they will produce this big quantity. So this interaction between artisans, small artisan, industry, industrialized creativity, all this is the secret of something. Also, those artisans, they work all the time to find new ways, and they propose to the designer new ideas. So even the creativity is not, the designer organizes the creativity, but very often, sometimes the creativity comes from bottom down, comes from the idea of one fabric maker, or one embroidery maker, or whatever. So this is, I think, something that makes our industry very special. And this is why we have to protect this kind of creativity, this kind of approach, this creativity, something that the creativity is very often in the hand of the people that they do it, that they make it.
Thank you. Cécile, you didn't inherit a system, but Copenhagen built one based in values and sustainability. Do you think fashion weeks are becoming gatekeepers of values?
I think fashion weeks have always been gatekeepers. Gatekeepers in terms of, you know, all the values that we've just been speaking about, such as creativity and craftsmanship and quality, design, beauty. And I think, you know, that has been a way of curating that, you know, what we see is also, you know, it's been our way of curating the fashion system. And I think now, I think, so gatekeeping is not new in our industry. I just think that there's a new element to the equation, which is also working with values. And some of the values that we've obviously implemented in our fashion week, because as you said, we didn't inherit a long history of fashion. We don't have the same, cultural heritage as you do in Milan and Paris. We're only 20 years old, our fashion week this year. But of course and we can never become Paris or Milan. We don't aspire to it. We have so much respect for your fashion weeks, and I think your fashion weeks really serve, as a reminder of the power of the beauty of fashion and how we must protect creativity. And I think you're that voice very, very much. So we could never become that. But what we can protect, I guess, is values relating to sustainability, which is very much inherited in our society in Denmark, and has been for a long time. And that has obviously been a way of not only differentiating ourselves from the big players, but also a way of also, I guess, verbalizing that it's also very important to protect, not only creativity, but it's also important to protect accountability and protect values of ethics and environmental issues that face our industry. So I guess we've added that layer to our Fashion Week, and have had the immense pleasure of working together with Berlin Fashion Week and also Runway and the British Fashion Council, their talent program, as well as Amsterdam Fashion Week on the sustainability-related work that we do at our Fashion Week. So it's been, you asked about gatekeeping, so, I think we've gone from like fashion gatekeeping to also values gatekeeping. So for those of you in the audience who might not be familiar with what we do, we have minimum standards at our Fashion Week that brands must adhere to in order to become a part of our Fashion Week and secure their participation. So I guess that's a way of gatekeeping values a little bit. Yeah.
I would really like to bring you in conversation, and I am going to be a bit pushy today. I hope you let me do that. We see new ecosystems emerging all around the world. Beyond Europe, we have China, we see Nigeria coming up. Are we moving from fashion capitals to cultural networks? Is there a fundamental shift on the role?
Do what?
Are we moving from fashion capitals with, we said, Paris, Milan, to networks?
Well, I think things can always, there is nothing in the economic life or in any aspect which is not fragile. But the thing is to believe in what we do and to anchor that to a certain identity. So what's happening is that we have let's say for the moment it's supposed to be the Champions League. I'm not forgetting UCC. I'm just, and with Milan and Paris and London and New York. But it's good that Fashion Week flourish. And then Copenhagen is joining this club. And I don't say that because Cecilia is here, because it has been a great job, a remarkable job you did. So it's very important. There cannot be some kind of monopoly or thing. But the thing is, and then we see, of course, what's happening is that you have, let's say, in any capital, and because just to have Fashion Week is just a fact of modernity. And it's in a period in which people don't speak with each other, or it's in the geopolitical context. Of course, you can have the Art Week and other things, but events. But events are getting more and more important now, and it's fine that this, once again, I said that is flourishing, knowing that of course all of us have to innovate. So this is not a problem. This is fine. There is one in Shanghai which is developing, and then we could talk about the new movement in all the countries, things, and the new generations. But the thing that they also come to be finally recognized in Europe, places in Paris or in Milan, or also in Copenhagen, or in Berlin and other cities. So if you take a bit of distance, this is happening in any activities, any industrial activities, even in cinema, you see what's happening in the capitals. But then, if you count, if you identify the sector for which they let's say, I mean, Paris is doing fine, which is cool, and but let's say more globally, European leadership, there are not so many. There are not so many. So that is the point. But the thing is, what is very important, we don't, many people think, oh, you're competitors. Oh, Milan is a competitor. Oh, Milan competing. No, never. This is not the point. We never work like that. And this is because we never work like that. We never envisage that it is working. We are all self in what we do, and we communicate. And
yeah, because I think, you know, Pascal, that each city, when you talk about Fashion Week is a platform, and each city expresses some vision of this platform, very related to the country in a sense. You know? In Italy, it's very related to the industry. In France, very related to the history of couture and the history of luxury. In Copenhagen, there is also this creativity related to sustainability, and a lot of people also that they love the streetwear and the life and the young youth movements. So, and like that in every different country. I think that some platform to express some point of view, some vision. But at the end, I think the question should be, what makes us European, Spanish, Italian, Greek, French, Swedish, whatever, all together, what makes us European? Where is the difference? And I think the difference is in the beauty, creativity, the respect that we have for some values, that they are sustainability, social, whatever those people, they think, animal welfare, social sustainability, and all of that. I mean, the basis for us are those. They make Europe as a whole, different from other countries. That we have also something that is very much in the DNA of all those countries. That is the beauty and the new, the roots and the new, the roots and the future. Something that merge innovation with heritage and innovation together. This makes Europe quite unique. This merger of heritage and innovation. All our countries, they are also very much attend to the design, for example, in general, phone issue, architecture. So this is the roots. This is the place where everything starts, you know. And we have to try to preserve this. And to preserve this, you have to think, what shall we do for the new generation, for the new brands? How can we make those new brands existing, evolving, the new designer, the new creative? How can we give the possibilities to those new creative to express themselves? And it doesn't mean that everybody has to become a huge, big brand of 3 billions. There are different levels, different stories that they can be said and told. And so we have to work all together to create those conditions. This is what we have really to do. And sometimes, even small stories, they are very important. Actually, myself, with my brother in the 90s, we created a brand, the Costume National, that was very strong for that time and was very impressive. It was not a big brand. At our best, we made 100 million. That was not small, but was not the huge brands, growing every year for many years. But what was just to express a point of view. And this is what we have to keep in mind, to give those new generation to express the point of view. And when we talk about that, we have also to think about the problems that they could face today, that they're different than the problem we faced at that time. And the big problem that they have today is about distribution. We cannot tell to the new brands, grow, express yourself, stay in the market, if we don't preserve also some kind of multi-branded distribution. If we don't imagine how could those people sell the products. So there is a lot to be thought, and a lot we have to try to give, a lot of ideas we should bring out in order to help the new generation, because this is the secret of Europe, create innovation with the root of heritage.
So you were talking about distribution, and we know that the fashion calendar is very busy, and therefore it's become very rigid, and it's difficult for new designers or from designers from all over the world to access that. What does it need to change, or what are we doing to support those smaller brands that maybe don't have the financial resources to join the official calendar and therefore to be discovered by those distribution partners? What can we do?
Maybe one more thing we'd like to say, getting back to the former questions linked to the identity of cities. This notion of identity, first, it is not, it can move ahead. It's not the same, doesn't stay the same, but then we can count on that. And this question of heritage and modernity and going forward, it's not BS. I mean, it has a substantial reality. And I get back to the question afterwards, but in the case of Paris, as Carlo said, this luxury tradition with this haute couture, the métier d'art thing, which is very important also in the imaginary and in the reality. And then for fashion, you know, I'm an economist, so I mentioned some figures, and I could talk a lot about figures, which would not be the most stimulating for the discussion, so I will not do it. But I've been marked by a line that Pierre Berger said the first time I talked with him. It was a long time ago. It was in the 80s, and I worked with him for 20 years. And there is one thing on line, sorry, because I tend to repeat it, but in the case of Paris, what he said is that for him, for me, what matters is that the fashion followed the idea of Paris as capital of the so-called School of Paris, when many artists from many countries came to join to Paris to work themselves and also with each other between World War I and World War II. And then after that, the capital of the arts precisely moved to New York in the 50s. And, but then fashion arrived, and the Fashion Week that was that. So all this is always very present, and I think it's true. We could go back before World War I. So, and I think for each city we could then have the link with design, and we could cope and just identify this type of links which are supporting us in fostering action and thought and action for the future. Now, getting back on the question, this is the fundamental question, but what we do a lot to support, so financially, if not a big amount of money, but to do so that they can show in the fashion week. We have a policy. And we work with each other on this policy. Like Elena and Serge with me, and Serge work with Sarah, we working with Carlo, and work with each other, and work with Cecilia. So we do that. But one thing is to be recognized and to show in the Fashion Week. Another thing is to find places to sell. And that is the point. Because we experience the double crisis of the crisis of physical wholesale. And at the same time, it's fine because this just makes some kind of atmosphere noise. It makes it great. We will ask them to continue. It's cool. We don't need to ask them to do it anyway. But and then there has been this huge hope, which was maybe unreasonable hope, with this online and everything which happens with matches and net-a-porter. That was great, and still, and so on. And not only, I'm based in London, that was also very difficult for London. And of course, we are not the same story. So we have this crisis. So this is why we regularly think of that and speak about that, because we have to find where we can have the support of the department stores, but some of them in the US are not so obvious. So So we need to find that and to imagine new models, new distribution models. We cannot be like the business people, we're not consultants, we're not business consultants, but this is what we need to do. We need to imagine what would be fashion, because if not, then they can show in the Fashion Week, we support them once, twice, 3 times, and after that they have no money because they have not sold. So, and the e-shop is not enough as a solution. So that's a crucial point to work on.
Cecilia, I see you nodding. What are you doing to support those young designers, or what ideas and innovations do we have in mind?
We have established a talent program, but I mean, the reason why I'm even hesitant to start talking about it is because, as you said, it's still so difficult. We support them through 3 seasons with mentorship, but also with a financial bursary each season, which is highly valuable to them in the moment. It's all great throughout the 3 seasons that we support. And then they are sort of left on their own, going out into reality. Of course, we also have a part of our program which is, for alumni, so it's not that we totally just let go of them. We make sure that they're still a part of our scheme. However, the financial bursary is no longer part of the scheme, and sadly what happens is that not everyone makes it. And I mean, I'm super sad to share, some of the figures that we see at our Fashion Week, which is, maybe 50% only are in business after, having been a part of our talent program, which certainly was not the intention from our side. The intention from our side was to, spotlight and support and in all ways possible. But I think it is a harsh reality out there currently, and it takes more than a talent program, sadly, to be able to navigate in the industry currently. So I think, as you said, Pascal, it's of course it's largely one of the big challenges is the distribution, but I think we've got challenges all along the value chain, and even also as a Fashion Week, at least for us, I think, for me it's been an eye-opener that maybe we cannot enjoy, being as rigid, and I'm saying rigid in a more positive way, but we work very structured, and we, the expectations that we set to the brands that participate in our Fashion Week have, traditionally been quite rigid, because I guess that's a part of running an event too. You have to have some measures in place. I think for us, I think we are in a time where we need to embrace more flexibility and see how we can meet the industry and especially the talents as this crazy world around us is unfolding. But I don't have the answer. But I totally agree with Pascal. It's a very difficult time for the businesses, small and big alike, but especially, of course, also the talents. And I wish that I could say that we have a talent program that just protected everyone and made sure that everyone is in business also in 10 years. But that's not the reality currently.
And we also have the economic reality of the moment that doesn't help, and consumer confidence. So one would think that given it a bit of time and consumer confidence coming back, a lot of the measures that you're putting in place are going to start, to be more effective, because the lack of effect is not coming from the measures themselves, but from the lack of a consumer confidence that supports that. If we look at the future, I would like to hear from you what will define a meaningful fashion system in 10 years. What do you think the fashion system should be? In 10, 15, 20, you choose.
It's a long time.
We can say 12.
We have to think what we said to now, what's happening in truth. It's happened something like, before there was a lot of multi-brand stores selling big brand, medium brand, and so a new designer was going to the multi-brand stores everywhere in the world and selling to those stores. And it was finances growing through the selling to those stores, because those stores was performing, paying the designers, and he could grow and stay alive and make his business and make a company. Today what's happened is from the top the brand, they became retailers. And down there is all the fast fashion retailers. Now we have the ultra fast fashion. So at the end, what is there in the middle is left without a real possibility to go on the market. At the same time, we have this beauty of respecting some rules. Our new designer respects sustainability, environmental, social, and the European rules, and that's very good. But we import every year. Last year in Europe, they arrived at 5,500,000 package below 150 euros of value, with no control at the customs, no tax. They enter Europe, and most of those, they are ultra-fast fashion. Only in Italy, 900 millions of packaging. So all this is a huge, huge amount of clothing, and the new designer, how could they sell to their own generation when the generation is buying very, very cheap goods without rules, with no respect for social, no respect for environmental? So first, we have to have the same rules. If products arrive in Europe, should respect the same rules of the product we produce here. Otherwise, the first penalized would be the new designer, the new brands. And this is very important. And also to make clear to the consumers that there is a difference between something produced with some rules and something produced with no rules. And the respect of people should be at the center of any production system. So this is very important. And if we want to imagine something positive for future fashion, we can have different scenarios. We can have a very terrible scenarios, and this is that people, they would not care about creativity, about fashion anymore. We will not preserve all these. Everything would be like a Far West, where there is ultra fast fashion everywhere, consuming everything, not respecting people. Who is stronger will win. On the other side, super luxury brands that they will keep still a niche. They will become more and more a niche, but will be a niche where those brands will survive. Few brands very, very big. So polarizing everything. In another idea, it should be, if we try to give some proper rules, to be a little bit more democratic in a sense, to give the possibility to have different markets, to bring back a market for those creative brands, to bring back a retail, multi-brand for supporting new designers, thinking to new stories, imagine a new way of distribution, new way of because the problem that they have those new design and new brand is to reach their own customers. So to create a link between not only digital but physical link, and we have to think about some new system, because if we don't think to some new system, the next 10 years could be horrible what we will do. So we have to preserve the creativity, the beauty, but to preserve that we have to give some rules. And the rules have to start from respecting the people, respect the ambient, and respecting all what is the environment of fashion. If we don't start there, I think that the future could be very, very terrifying.
Yeah, well, we fully agree with Carlo, of course. If we reason 10 years ahead, what can we expect? One thing is, of course, AI, which is progressing month after month, and with robotics. So that will induce huge changes in the whole economy in any aspect. I think that it will not destroy craftsmanship, first because people are very much attached to craftsmanship, and also because of technological questions, which is that our sector is probably one of the most complicated sector that you can imagine in terms of robotics with the finger. So there are developments in China in particular, but very efficient in terms of robotics, but this can apply to simple products. But when you talk to the highest skilled roboticians and scientists, they tell you the same thing. So that's one thing. I say that because this will not be the case in numerous industries. That's one thing. Another thing is, Carlo mentioned the rules. So what will happen with the rules? I will also have to take care that we see Europe, this is the case, but also there will be rules more or less, but somehow they still, in the US, and we see what's happening, and in China for sure. You know, China, in their 15th plan, decided that they will become the number one in sustainable fashion. In general, they do succeed in when they say something. But then the question is, what does that mean? And now there is a paradox between, I mean, environmental matters, ecological matters are more and more important in the awareness and the will of designers, the young generations. But there is a kind of propensity to a disconnection between the regulations, which are now, which did exist in the cosmetics, in the automobile industry, in many sectors, but not in fashion, which is the decisions which are made or going to be made by public authorities, including European, but that will be the same thing in other parts of the world. And the reality of the ecological meaning for designers, it is disconnected. If you take the example of durability, it has nothing to do. It's just the contrary, the sense that it represents. So, but for that, the thing is that to work on that and to ensure in the next years, in the 10 next years, the 5 coming years to start with, that creativity will be preserved and will not be absorbed, because then you have the strong people, you have maybe a logic is more logic of technocratic, and be more like engineers. There are good people just working on that, but it is highly technical. So this is why we work on these topics. And this is why we work with each other, to give an example of something which is supposed to be a high degree of synthesis, the quest of the Grail, being this digital product passport, which is not very glamorous. Many people, like outside of fashion, say, they see Fashion Week, and they say, oh, what does that mean? Why are you concerned? We are very much concerned by that. The third point is also to see the market power of people. You know, the average price, there is a huge gap. Luxury products have higher prices than before. At the same time, the average price in Europe for buying a clothes is something like 15 or 20 euros, and with the ultra discount, it will still go down. So what's happening? And then the people have more budgetary constraints, and there is no growth in this continent. So but then we have a creativity-driven sector, and there is at the same time there is a whole like boulevard, a whole space in which they can express themselves, but they will need competencies of ecosystems and competencies of new managers. Big groups by themselves, they are developing, they keep on fostering the level of competences. So when you have a certain size, you can do that. And this is exactly what's happening. But now for what we say, the basic things of where to sell. We know to whom, but where, and not only e-shop stuff. That will require innovative management but respecting creativity and creativity-driven motivations. And then there will be things, supply chain, et cetera, et cetera. And what is behind that is also the idea of maintaining a manufacturing production and ecosystem in Europe. So because people take reindustrialization of Europe, Europe's sovereignty, industrial sovereignty, okay, no, this is very concrete. And we are very much ahead in what's happening now, and so this you see that we need to be like bees, we need to have like eyes all together, and to work for on this innovation matters, not to be suffering from innovation, but to be ahead. And one thing is that designers themselves, they are highly talented, creative people. Not all of them. All of them think they are. Not all of them are. But then, one thing is to be creative and to make collection, to work with artists. Another thing is to be innovative. That's other talent, new business models, new stuff, new usages, new thing. So all this is a big transformation, and that has been like kind of accelerated after the pandemic. Then we had some kind of gilding years, golden years, like in the 20s, 1 century ago, and now we're entering into something which is very different, but with the big tech arriving, with everything arriving, but which can be very stimulating, but we need to work and to work and to work and to imagine and to imagine and to imagine.
Before we open for questions, Cecilia, I would love to hear from you. Where do you think fashion will be Fashion Week should be in 10 years' time?
So I don't want to repeat what's already been said, but I think that actually the topic of this talk captured it very well. Where is it? In 10 years from now, what I think we all dream of is that we have a system that preserves the creativity of the European industry. And that system is dependent on policymakers. And of course, it's also dependent on all the creative forces and the creative souls working in our industry. But we need to get to a point where that system has been implemented, because right now it is at stake. It is at risk of losing momentum. I think it already has lost momentum, sadly. But I think it is very much at risk, and it's taken decades to build, and to build an industry that embodies so much, as I said, soul and nerve and heart. Some of them are more talented than others, I agree, but there's so much talent in our industry. So in 10 years from now, we have managed to preserve that.
And I like what we were saying about multiple different realities existing together in dialogue and working together for a common goal of preserving European
Just
fashion.
one thing, which is because we say everything is difficult, but we will do it. But also, we have also benefited from the innovation. We have benefited from social networks. Mm-hmm. If you see the well-knownness and the incredible dynamic of reputation in image, so this is also promising for all the young designers, the big ones and the young designers. This is great also, because fashion is, well, there are some people posing questions, as we saw. They were screaming outside at the moment. But it is also absolutely praised by many people and many young people and many huge numbers, statistically huge numbers of people who even know fashion, codes, things. And if we see the impact of a fashion week, it is getting crazy, a bit scary for us. I mean, worrying. We have to take care of that sometimes. But this is encouraging. It's about the sectors, it's more difficult. But for us, there is also cool stuff.
I think on that positive note, we'll open for questions. We're running behind, but maybe a couple of them.
Is that a question of fur, no? I don't think so.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you very much to all the people that organized this fashion summit. Thank you very much, because we have the chance to have you all here. Thank you very much for what you said. I think we all appreciate, I think we all think it's extraordinary that you're here. My name is Mariano Moreno, and I am couture and bridal designer. So there is a lot of designers and talents that want to preserve that essence of designers that you have in the title today. So I wonder if you have any advice for those designers that want to still have the chance to, bring tradition and innovation to fashion in the future. Thank you.
I can't say some words. You see couture and bridal, right? Couture and bridal, you say.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I can say some stuff?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm going first to start with haute couture and to land on couture and bridal more generally. Couture, it's a haute couture itself, which is like very French, haute couture, haute cuisine, etc. But haute couture, very respectable activity that we so important for us. And with specific rules. It was said 20 years ago that it would die. But what happens? It is the contrary has happened. And what do I say that? Not to tell you, but to talk to you, but as an answer to talk to you about the beautiful collections of Dior and Chanel and Schiaparelli, and know that, or Valentino, Fendi, and others. But just to tell you that it is very attractive for young designers. Like in Paris, we have Robert Woon, we have Kevin Germanier, we have new Miss Sohei from Korea. So Robert Woon is Hong Kong and is also in London. But what I absolutely think is that it's another kind of model, including with bridal, and that couture itself, more generally, if you manage well, if you have your community, and if you develop your community, like for fashion, like the digital community, and everything, and counting on your craftsman of the craft, I think it's an alternative model. It would be too long to speak about that, but we have some of the young designers who don't want necessarily to just want to go that way. And it is connected in a formal way. It's connected to a low-tech approach, and I cannot say more, but I mean, to us, I think it is one of the way to go on, and maybe not so costly. But then it's a question of having the community and clients. I have a good example, but she's in haute couture, like Julie de Libran, she's a French lady, very respectable, remarkable designer. So she made that choice to go toward that thing. Then she was an artistic director, then she could enter formally as a guest in haute couture. But let's say more generally, that means beyond the fact of haute couture or not haute couture, she made the choice not going to a regular way of ready-to-wear, but the choice of having like a salon and just receiving the people, making the shows there and so on. So you see, and there are other examples. And we can talk. It's interesting to deepen. Sorry.
One question here at the front.
Thank you all for coming to Spain and having a conversation at that level. We all appreciate that. My question is, when talking about values in Europe beyond the identity of each fashion week, and when talking about what will be fashion in the future and making a system, like Cécile was stating, maybe our last hope is to protect the craft. So my question is, how do you think that we can protect the craft, that it is so core at Europe and probably is in an incredible danger to be lost in the next years?
Well, that is the point, how to protect the craft, you know. We protect the craft in different ways. First is some rules that we need at the European level. Second is education. We have to promote education to the craft, because if we don't evaluate the craft for what it is, we don't promote education to the craft. We have a problem, for example, now in Italy, there are a lot of people, they don't want to be artisan anymore. They don't want to be artisan also because probably we don't tell very well what does it mean, because they are artists, they are half artists. Anyway, big part is an artist, and if we don't communicate well, it doesn't work. For example, in the food, many years ago, nobody wanted to be a chef or cook, but after MasterChef, everybody wants to become, even people after graduation, everything, they want to do that because it was promoted, you know, the communication of what it is. So first we have to work about the communication of what it is. Second, we have to pay more the people when they start. And we have to create some rules in tax, whatever, that the people, when they start, they have paid much more. Because if a young girl, a young guy starts to be an artisan and he gets very little pay or not much paid, he doesn't have a real motivation to that. So we have to think how to create some system, fiscal system, whatever, that they get more money in the pocket. They are more motivated to start. So promoting what it is, promoting education, trying to give more money to the people that want to be artisans. And I think this is and cultural, I mean, narrative means storytelling. So this is the best way to protect craftsmanship, you know. And I agree with Pascal when he said a lot of new designers, they want to be a new wave of couturier. They want to create for a community. They don't want to become big. They don't want to be made a big brand. They want to be very much authentic, and they want to work in the good community. So there is a completely different way that will promote more the artisans in the future, but we have to create the condition, and I think that's the way to create the condition.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions. We ran out of time. Thank you so much for this fantastic panel for everybody and for many more to come. Thank you.
Thank you.